4:23 a.m. The first explosion doesn't come from above. It erupts from below, turning the bridge deck into a launch platform for 340 tons of military vehicles. For 2.8 seconds, drivers experience weightlessness. Then gravity remembers them. 438 military vehicles. $750 million in supplies. Gone in less time than it takes to call for help. This wasn't firepower. It was patience. Someone waited 96 hours for the exact moment when retreat became impossible. Welcome to the channel. Here's a question before we start: if you commanded a critical bridge and knew your enemy was watching, would you defend it heavily and signal its importance, or leave it looking undefended and risk everything? Drop your answer below. If you want more breakdowns of operations where timing beats technology, hit subscribe. What you're about to see will change how you think about modern conflict. January 19th, Brussels. A 7-hour negotiation ends with one Russian demand: guarantee the Seversky Bridge remains off-limits. No strikes, no reconnaissance within 30 kilometers. The bridge carries 60% of supplies to the southern sector. Losing it would collapse logistics for 12,000 troops. Ukraine's negotiator takes 40 seconds before responding. Not with words. With a question. What happens if we refuse? The Russian diplomat doesn't answer. At 11:17 p.m., talks end without agreement. International observers report stalemate. Military analysts predict both sides will avoid escalation. They're wrong on both counts. Because 600 kilometers east, a planning cell has already calculated the bridge's structural load limits, identified its weakest support points, and modeled 847 different collapse scenarios. The operation doesn't need approval. It needs a convoy. Think about that. When have you seen someone answer a question by not answering? Comment your thoughts. January 20th, 1:40 a.m. Water temperature, 4 degrees Celsius. Current speed, 2.3 knots. The Seversky Bridge has 11 main support columns. 6 are critical for load distribution. A team places 17 waterproof devices against the underwater sections of columns 3, 5, and 7. Each device, 4.2 kilograms. Cost, $1,060. Attachment method, industrial epoxy rated for 9,000 psi, reinforced with mechanical clamps. No magnets. Bridge inspectors carry magnetic detectors. Total installation time, 19 minutes. The devices use no batteries, no electronics, no transmitters. They are pressure-activated mechanical systems. When the bridge flexes beyond a specific threshold, approximately 8,200 tons of static load concentrated in the center span, internal triggers release. For the next 94 hours, Russian engineers conduct 3 security sweeps. They find nothing because they're searching for electronics. Standard convoy traffic crosses normally 15 to 25 vehicles spaced across the 600-meter span. Maximum flex, 4 centimeters. The devices remain dormant. Here's what makes this work: the devices don't need to destroy the bridge. They need to trigger structural resonance at the exact moment when weight distribution creates maximum stress. Engineers call it sympathetic failure. One support gives way, load transfers to adjacent columns, and the cascade becomes unstoppable. Quick question: would you trust a purely mechanical system with no electronics for a mission this critical? Yes or no below. January 24th, 2:15 a.m. Russian Southern Command faces a choice. Brussels negotiations failed. Western military aid is arriving faster than expected. The southern offensive needs resupply now. Not in 3 days. Orders go out: maximum capacity convoy. Everything available. Ammunition, fuel, spare parts, medical supplies. Value, $750 million. Enough to sustain intensive operations for 14 days. By 3:30 a.m., 438 vehicles are staged. The route? The Seversky Bridge. Intelligence shows no Ukrainian drone activity for 40 days. No artillery targeting indicators. Satellite imagery confirms normal civilian traffic. Risk assessment, minimal. The convoy plan calls for crossing in 3 groups. Spacing, 50 meters between vehicles. Estimated crossing time, 28 minutes. Air defense coverage. 6 TOR-M2 systems providing overlapping protection. Electronic warfare units will jam any drone signals within 25 kilometers. But logistics officers make one change, reduce spacing to 25 meters. Reason, new intelligence suggests possible drone activity at dawn. Faster crossing means less exposure. The change triples the number of vehicles on the bridge at any moment. At 4:05 a.m., the convoy begins rolling. Lead elements reach the bridge at 4:18 a.m. No threats detected. No warnings. Just a routine crossing under heavy protection. Here's what I want to know: when you're making decisions under pressure, do you prioritize speed or caution? Comment below. For 22 a.m. 89 vehicles are now on the bridge. Combined weight, 5,100 tons. The span flexes 6.3 centimeters within normal parameters. Convoy speed, 35 kilometers per hour. Everything proceeds smoothly. Then a BM-21 rocket launcher in position 47 develops a transmission fault. Not catastrophic. Just enough to reduce speed to 15 kilometers per hour. The convoy compresses behind it. Within 90 seconds, 127 vehicles are on the bridge. Weight, 7,400 tons. Flex increases to 11 centimeters. The convoy commander makes a decision: don't stop. Stopping 127 vehicles on the bridge creates more risk than a slow crossing. Push through. The BM-21 will clear the far side in 3 minutes. At 4 hours 23 minutes and 10 seconds, weight reaches 8,200 tons. The bridge flexes 14.7 centimeters. Inside the pressure-activated devices, mechanical triggers release. Shape charges detonate against column bases in a calculated sequence: 3, then 5, then 7, interval, 0.3 seconds. Column 3 doesn't shatter. It develops a compression fracture. Load transfers to columns 2 and 4. Then column 5 fails. Now columns 4 and 6 carry weight they weren't designed for. Column 7 goes 0.9 seconds later. The center span has lost 54% of its support. The roadway doesn't collapse immediately. It sags. Drivers feel it, a 40-centimeter drop. Some brake. Others accelerate. The weight distribution shifts chaotically. At 4 hours 23 minutes and 47 seconds, the center span buckles. 127 vehicles slide toward the center. Steel cables snap. Concrete fractures. The first vehicle hits the river at 4 hours 23 minutes and 51 seconds. By 4 hours 24 minutes and 15 seconds, 94 vehicles are in the water or crushed under collapsed sections. 33 vehicles manage to reach stable sections on either end. The air defense systems never fire. Electronic warfare units detect nothing to jam. There are no drones, no missiles, no external attack. Just structural failure at the exact moment when maximum weight met minimum support. 4:35 a.m. The bridge has a 180-meter gap. 216 vehicles are stranded west. 128 are trapped east. 94 are destroyed. Russian engineers arrive at 5:20 a.m. Their assessment: structural failure due to overloading during convoy crossing. Estimated repair time, 6 to 8 weeks. Temporary pontoon bridge, 11 days minimum. Logistics officers calculate the damage. Lost, 1,640 tons of ammunition. Fuel for 450 vehicles, medical supplies for 3 field hospitals, communications equipment for 2 brigade headquarters. Stranded supplies can't be retrieved, both banks are under observation. Units in the southern sector receive new orders by 6 a.m. Reduce artillery fire by 70%. Postpone all offensive operations. Shift to defensive positions. Alternate supply routes add 140 kilometers. And expose convoys to additional risk. The investigation finds no evidence of sabotage. Divers examine the columns, standard structural failure consistent with overload. No explosives residue. No foreign objects. Just concrete that couldn't handle the stress. Because that's exactly what happened. The devices used shaped charges small enough to avoid detection residue in flowing water. The epoxy dissolves after 48 hours. The mechanical components sink into river sediment. Nothing remains but a bridge that failed at the worst possible moment. Cost to Russia, $750 million in. Equipment and supplies, plus 6 to 8 weeks without a primary logistics route. Cost for the operation, $18,020 in materials, 19 minutes of installation, and 94 hours of waiting. By dawn, the Seversky Bridge exists only on maps that haven't been updated. The gap in the river is real. The gap in Russian logistics is worse. But here's what this operation actually proves. Modern warfare isn't about who has more weapons. It's about who understands systems better. The bridge didn't fail because it was attacked. It failed because someone understood exactly how much weight it could handle, and then created conditions where that limit would be exceeded at the worst possible time. This wasn't about firepower. It was about engineering, timing, and human predictability. When you're under pressure, you make decisions that feel right. Tighten convoy spacing to reduce exposure time. Push through a slow vehicle to maintain momentum. Those decisions made sense. They also created the exact conditions needed for failure. So here's my final question: in future conflicts, what matters more, having the best technology, or understanding your enemies' decision-making process well enough to turn their own choices against them? Drop your thoughts below. The discussions in the comments are often more insightful than the videos. If this changed how you think about modern warfare, hit like and subscribe. We're building a community that analyzes what's really happening, not just what makes headlines. Next week, how a fake supply depot became a $400 million trap. The deception involved is next level. Until then, remember, the most effective weapons don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they wait in silence for 94 hours. Then strike at the exact moment when your own decisions have already trapped you.